Fear.
Fear, 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 fear,
Fear.
fear.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Fear Podcast.
Pennywise and Zimbabwedookers or whatever.
Yes. Hello, all you Pennywise and Zimbabwedookers and vengeful seagull gods of all ages. Everyone is welcome on this podcast, unless you're a racist or a sexist or a fascist. Who else?
Anyway, welcome back to the Fear Podcast. This time recorded through Zoom because OBS and Discord video calls just do not gel. I think Discord just uses a ridiculous amount of CPU for some reason, because every time I try to record Discord video, the whole thing breaks. So we're on Zoom now.
It's beautiful. It's honestly and truly beautiful.
Yeah, truly. So hopefully this episode will be easier for me to edit.
All right. So,
I don't know where I was. I feel like there was more. There was more I was gonna say, and then I just stopped.
Okay. Oh well. All right. So welcome to the Fear Podcast. Fear.
Fear.
I am your host, Kirk Zanetti, and I'm joined by my co-host
Coleman Hahn.
And we. This.
Wait,
is
why am I the co-host?
Co-host means that it's.
I guess two hosts created equal.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's not like you're the vice host where you have nothing but where you have nothing but power via word of mouth.
Oh God. All right, so I feel like people generally know the rundown by now. We've made 3 of these before. We're about to make a 4th one. At what time is it for you? Like midnight?
Yeah, just about.
Yeah, I'm in California right now, so it's only 10 for me, and I'm in a house full of family members, so I had to we had to wait until they all went to bed, because the movies we have to talk about today are very strange, and I don't want to confuse members of my family by talking about the penis drill.
We don't want to. Yeah, the penis drill requires some incredible thought and dedication that you cannot get from simply. I don't know where I was going with this.
I don't know either.
Okay, so yes, we have three more films for you guys today. I have the IMDb pages of all 3 pulled up, so I'll just describe them for you now. We'll start off with Outbreak, an action drama thriller from 1995. Fuck if I know.
That's all it says?
No. That's just the category. That's the genre categories.
I mean, those are the 2 genres that it categorizes that as.
Here's what it actually says. American doctors struggle to find a cure for a deadly virus spreading through a California town that was brought to America by an African monkey.
So we watched this movie because it's very topical in the current era.
Yeah.
Especially, yeah. We watched it on Netflix, like at the very end of May, so it's actually been a few weeks since we watched this one, but I feel like I still remember it pretty well. We watched it early because it was being taken off Netflix, and I wanted to watch it before it got taken off Netflix, because I mean, it's called Outbreak. And then the other 2 movies we're going to talk about I watched a few days ago are both part of the Japanese series Tetsuo.
The Tetsuo trilogy.
Yes.
There's TCU, if you will.
Yes, the TCU.
Tetsuo
the first film is Tetsuo the Iron Man. The second film, which I did you ever watch Tetsuo 2?
No, I was gonna. Then I fell asleep, and I was like, fuck it.
Yeah.
But
there's.
But I'll watch. I'll tell you what. In between the recording of this podcast and when it gets uploaded, I will watch Tetsuo both Body Hammer, the second
Tetsuo 2
one.
Body Hammer. But the two we watched for this
And
podcast
yeah,
are we watched
Tetsuo the Iron Man, which was the first one, and Tetsuo the Bullet Man,
which is the pseudo remake. It's one of those like soft reboots made like 20, I don't, maybe not 20 years later, but like in the 2000s. This is a Japanese movie franchise, and we're essentially just going to a very weird franchise. So we're essentially just going to compare the original movie and the remake. I didn't want to watch the sequel because I could only take so much Tetsuo Man weirdness.
In the comments of when this video gets uploaded on YouTube, after I watch Tetsuo Body Hammer, I will I'll put my thoughts in a synopsis of the movie and issue any updates or corrections that I might have to, in case that this was not actually a pseudo remake, but was instead just the third entry of the
it's
franchise.
kind of it's a weird in between of third entry, and I feel like even if lore in Body Hammer fills in this new one, there's still a lot of remake like common basic story structure elements that they used again.
Right.
It's not fully a remake because where it goes differs a lot. But you know what? We'll get into it in a bit.
It's like Scream 4, where it's not really a remake, but also kind of a remake.
Yeah.
But it's not Scream 4, so it's good. I fucking hate Scream. I hate slight change up before we get to the other movies. I fucking hate Scream so goddamn much. And I put myself through watching all 4 of them. Oh my god.
He puts himself through bad movies that we aren't even doing for the podcast.
Why do I do this to myself? I just got done with a J.J. Abrams marathon, and I'm now considering doing a Joss Whedon marathon.
Okay, but most of what Joss Whedon makes are TV shows. That's going to take you so long.
I'm just going to do Buffy and then a couple of the movies.
Well, Buffy's good, though, so...
Yeah. So it's not going to be as painful as J.J. Abrams' witty dialogue and brilliant storytelling of not planning ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, Tetsuo Iron Man. Tetsuo Iron Man.
Wait, I thought we were going to talk about Outbreak first.
No, I'm doing a quick summary of each.
Oh, yes. Got it.
I'm giving you the IMDb descriptions.
Yeah.
Fuck's sake. For some reason, the recording levels keep going down on this mic on Audacity, so you're going to hear me kind of coming in and out in terms of volume.
Okay.
For some reason. But
well, hopefully we won't have to use your Audacity because OBS seems to be working just fine. It's picking up my audio. It seems to be working just fine. So hopefully we won't need to use your Audacity. It's Discord. Discord was the problem. The reason we had so many hurdles last episode. It wasn't OBS. It was Discord.
I'm gonna probably send my Audacity file anyway, just in case.
Yeah.
As like a safe backup.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, Tetsuo the Iron Man, horror sci-fi movie from 1989. The synopsis is: a businessman accidentally kills the metal fetishist. Metal fetishist is capitalized, so I guess that's just.
I guess that's the guy who sticks the metal rod in his leg at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
This is a weird movie, folks.
I guess that's a fetish for him.
I guess.
I guess that kind of would explain what happens in the last half of the movie better.
Yeah. He's like, oh yes, metal.
Okay. The metal fetishist who gets his revenge by slowly turning the businessman, into a grotesque hybrid of flesh and rusty metal.
Yep. I mean, that's pretty much the movie.
That's the cleanest description you can possibly give for that completely batshit insane movie.
Yeah. It's crazy.
And then finally, Tetsuo the Bullet Man, a 2009 action horror sci-fi movie. Also kind of like Power Rangers or any of those other sort of.
Tetsuo the Bullet Man has a much more action
tech.
movie emphasis compared to the original's more horror.
I don't know much about like tokusatsu, I think is the technical term for it, like the stuff that the original Power Rangers and whatnot is based off of. But it feels very much like a sort of dark one of those shows, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, Tetsuo the Iron Man. Tetsuo the Bullet Man. Gotta love the similar naming conventions, making it real easy to tell what's movie I'm talking about. Tetsuo the Bullet Man, losing his son Tom in a hit and run triggers violent emotions in Anthony, whose body begins to transform. When the driver who kills Tom reappears, Anthony mutates into a mass of metal. Oh, fuck me, this description is bad. Anthony mutates into a mass of metal, a human weapon fueled by an uncontrollable rage. So yeah, that's Tetsuo the Bullet Man.
Neither description describes just how weird these Tetsuo movies are.
No. And Tetsuo the Bullet Man's description wasn't really even very good.
No.
All right, so I guess we'll start with.
We have 3 movies today because last podcast we did 4 and it was really long. So
okay, to be fair, like even if we had done 3, that podcast was going weirdly long anyway.
Last one was a big one, big chunker. That's why that's why I still haven't uploaded it as of the time I'm recording this. And
it was an unintentional apology for losing the true 3rd episode.
Yeah, which will be uploaded at some point when we record over the audio and talk about those movies again.
Yeah. We're going to record a commentary I don't know if we've already told you this, but we're going to record a commentary
I think we mentioned it in the 3rd one, but we can mention
it for our botched 3rd podcast.
And maybe I'll upload that first, in which case I'll just
we'll
put a link in the description.
The Fear Podcast, The Lost Levels.
Yep. Go watch that if it's out already. If it's not, it will be. Now let's begin talking about these movies.
Hang on. Actually, before we get to Outbreak, is there any recent movies or shows that you saw that you want to give your thoughts on?
Well, see, this was recent when we were first planning out this podcast, but now it's been enough time that I'm not sure how well I really remember it. I watched a movie called Rat Race from 2001.
Right. You told me about this.
Yeah. It's basically so this group of like dysfunctional people get let me pull up a little IMDb description of it so I can
the way you described it, it was basically part 7 of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
Yeah, basically.
But somehow even more wacky races inspired.
It's very wacky races. Rat Race 2001. The Rotten Tomatoes score is 44%. It's one of those movies that's like peak dumb comedy, so the critic reviews are always going to be a little bit wow, that is the worst description ever. IMDb's description: a Las Vegas casino magnate determined to find a new avenue for wagering sets up a race for money. That's so like undescriptive and doesn't even begin to like describe the movie. But it's very early 2000s for better and for worse. I mean, it stars this guy. It stars. Hold on, I'm gonna hold him in front of the camera. It stars. Load. It stars this guy. This dude. Brecken Meyer is his name apparently. The guy who was like in movies and like.
That is one early 2000s generic white actor.
I know him as John from live action Garfield, to give you a frame of reference.
Oof.
Yeah, he has not had an illustrious career, but he's pretty good in this movie. So it's this group of crazy characters, and this Las Vegas casino guy is like, "Hey, I left a bunch of money in weird cowboy town, Wyoming. First person to get there gets all the money." And so it's this completely insane road trip rat race uh JoJo Part 7 movie that's full of like, dumb characters being dumb humor. What makes it work, what made it work for me, what made me enjoy it is that all of these characters are insane in their own specific ways. They're not just like Adam Sandler stupid.
Or quirky for the sake of quirky.
Yeah, they all have their weird specific and the other thing that made it cool was they meet a lot of characters along the way, and there's a fun element of even the characters. There are a lot of characters introduced that seem sane and normal at first, but then the more they're in the movie, they end up being just as crazy as the initial protagonists. So it has this fun theming going on of like anyone can be this crazy when fueled by a wacky treasure hunt. But so it's basically like it's just they keep running into these characters, and it also has a really good escalation of chaos. Like the chaotic elements at the beginning are nothing compared to the chaos at the end. But what really notably made this a movie I wanted to bring up is that it ends with all of the characters. So they get to the money. So they get to the money, and this like banker guy who the casino dude was working with has stolen the money, and so they're chasing after him to get the money. And then they chase after him and accidentally end up on the stage of a live Smash Mouth concert that is being. Just wait, it gets weirder. It gets weirder.
I don't think you told me about this when you described it to me the
Well, I
first time.
told you the movie ended with All Star, didn't I?
Yeah, but I thought it was like a happy dance song ending.
No. Well, it is, but wait, okay. So they end up on the stage of a Smash Mouth concert for charity with these bags of money, and Smash Mouth himself, the man behind the Smash Mouth, he's like
Mr. Smash.
Mr. Smash. He thinks they've brought this money to donate to charity. So then him and the entire crowd of audience are like, "Oh my god, you brought money to donate." And so all the characters are like, "Well, I guess we have to donate it now." And then the rich casino man shows up, and Breckin Meyer is like, "Well, he's the one responsible for the money, so praise him for it." So then he can't redact the money anymore without looking like an asshole. And so then all the money gets donated to this charity, and then all the characters have a dance party on stage with Smash Mouth singing All Star.
You see, this is a work of fantasy because the evil banker cares about his image.
So that makes it the second 2001 movie to end in All Star. Actually, I'm curious. When was Shrek 2001?
Yes, it was like either 2001 or I'm not sure if I would say 2000.
It's 2001. I just looked it up.
Yeah.
April 22nd, 2001. This movie was. Oh wait, that's Breckin Meyer's search. Okay, hold on.
I can't believe Shrek ripped off Rat Race.
Rat Race came out a few months after Shrek. But the best part is that the two movies released so close to each other, there's no way one of them ripped off the other.
No.
Like, this was pure coincidence that All Star by Smash Mouth is at the end of two 2001 movies.
The zeitgeist was saying, "Give us the mouth. We want the mouth."
I was laughing so hard, and I don't think my family that I was watching this with fully knew why I found the movie ending in a Smash Mouth concert so funny. But it was.
How could they not? It's a work of beauty.
Yeah, it really just completed the very early 2000s-ness of this movie. Like, it's got so many... It's got Breckin Meyer, it's got Seth Green, uh, it's got Whoopi Goldberg. There's a lot of actors in it that are like, oh yeah, that's Cuba Gooding Jr. Where the frick... When has Cuba Gooding Jr. been in anything big recently? It's all these actors that were very specifically big in that period of time.
That period of time, we were still coming off of the glut of the 90s.
Yeah.
Before the true early two, before the like before the start of the true early 2000s aesthetic.
Yeah. And now it's also very early 2000s in some bad ways. Like there are the occasional like off-color joke or like over-the-top caricature. Uh, and Kathy Bates has a really weird cameo character, and at one point she uses the word retarded. Like there's some stuff that it's like, oh, that wouldn't be in a movie nowadays, for better or for worse. So this is a movie I could totally understand why people wouldn't like it, but the zaniness level was right for me.
Yeah.
But
Well,
now that I've talked about Rat
sorry.
Race, I don't really know if I've watched anything else fear inducing. There was Rat Race is definitely fear inducing because every time a character stumbles into a new scenario, you're just like fear, 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 because you can see how things are going to get ridiculously worse.
Right. Well, I haven't been watching anything fear-inducing other than Star Wars: The Clone Wars and Star Wars, other than the sheer amount of obsession that I've grown to have for the Clone Wars period of Star Wars from the start of the Clone Wars until the midpoint of the fall of the Empire, aka the entire timeline covered from the Clone Wars series made in 2008 all the way until the end of Rebels in 2017, plus Revenge of the Sith, because I have no self-control.
I should really get into Clone Wars. I also need to get into Avatar: The Last Airbender now that it's on Netflix.
How have you not? You didn't get into it before?
I mean, I didn't really have any exposure to it before. It's not like Nick.
How?
Well, I mean, of course I had exposure in that I knew of it, but when it was on the air, I never had anybody recommending it to me. I think
that feels insane to me. Like you were like that was I was probably too old to be still watching Nickelodeon, but I loved it, Avatar. But you were probably the perfect age for that show.
See, I would argue I actually wasn't, because that show's aiming at a slightly older generation of kids than because when did that show start?
2006 or 7, I want to say.
Yeah, that's I was 7 or 8. I feel like that show's aiming at 9 to 10 to 11-year-olds.
Right.
Now I might have still enjoyed it, but I just never watched it. And now I'm watching it on Netflix, but I've only watched 3 episodes because it hasn't really gotten going yet, and I just haven't.
It gets good. It gets really good. I don't want to be like those guys where it's it gets good after XXX, but the show really finds its stride after the episode "The Storm" from episode 1. Okay. That's where we get into.
Oh no, I have no problem with people with the it gets good at X point mentality, as long as you're not forcing people to some of my favorite shows and games and stuff are ones that have really slow starts and then get really good at a certain point. So I have no problem with that kind of idea.
I prefer to use the sort of idea of they find their stride at a certain point where it's the quality of the show before that point didn't really matter, but by that point they had found what worked about the show. Fine, and from then on out, they fine-tuned it and perfected it.
Yeah. So
the storm is where we get into Aang and Zuko's backstory. Okay. So that's where a lot of the intrigue comes from.
All right. So we got very off topic.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Outbreak.
Outbreak. Can you tell that this is a movie that's not very interesting?
It's really
if we're taking this long to get to it.
Yeah. So it starts out with it starts out with like a Vietnam War scene where the military, this movie loves the military, and in particular military helicopters.
Oh, it has a fetish for military helicopters.
Yeah, serious. Every opening to a scene or closing to a scene almost is characters flying into a location via helicopter and then flying out. The movie starts out in Vietnam where this army camp gets blown up by the US government because it contains a virus outbreak. Then we cut like 30 years forward to who was the lead actor in that? Oh yeah, Dustin Hoffman. Dustin Hoffman.
For
some reason, my brain was thinking Bruce Willis or like Vin Diesel because I feel like he plays a very Bruce Willis / Vin Diesel character.
My brain was going to, for some reason, I think Dennis Leary.
Okay.
Okay, hang on. Who was the guy who played King Koopa in the Mario
I think that was
Bros.
Dennis
movie?
Leary.
King Koopa.
Fear.
Super Mario.
Super Mario Bros. Movie. Fear.
John Light, not Bob. Dennis Hopper. That's
Dennis
what I was
Hopper.
thinking.
Yeah. Okay. Dennis Leary is another actor though.
Yeah.
Well, see, I was just because though the two actors you just mentioned are more similar to Dustin Hoffman, but I feel like Dustin Hoffman in this movie plays a very he plays like an action movie hero kind of character.
Yeah, he does not play
I feel like if this movie was made 10 years later, it would have been Bruce Willis or Vin Diesel, I think.
Right. It does not play as like a drama. It plays like an action movie.
The thing is, though, it tries to play as a drama.
It tries.
The beginning of the movie makes Dustin Hoffman is this military scientist who works with these other military scientists, one of whom is played by Kevin Spacey, unfortunately. And they go and
Kevin Spacey is like a gay best friend.
Basically, yeah. There's a lot of weird tension there. So they go to this African town that's infected by a virus. Their job is to they're basically like the CDC but military version.
I don't know why. Yeah. I don't know if that even exists, but yeah.
Yeah. So they go to this place in helicopters, of course. They do a helicopter establishing shot. They land there.
I think they also do a helicopter exiting shot.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm telling you, it's like at least half of the scene transitions in this movie are just helicopter flying shots. There's also a helicopter chase at one point, because of course there is. So they get there, they find that this place is infected. They have a really stupid moment where Cuba Gooding Jr. sees like a dying baby and he freaks out and takes off his hazmat helmet because he's a moron, even though he's supposed to be a scientist and a doctor who wouldn't do that at the sight of like a hurt person. But all of these characters are morons, as we'll get to. And then
not a single one of them follows quarantine rules.
No, that's what's really enjoyable about this movie. In this time is like watching them horribly fail at following quarantine protocol while they're supposed to be the experts on quarantine protocol. It's pretty great. So this virus is killing people in this town. I don't remember. Do they like stop it or do they just kind of leave?
I think it just kind of like kills itself, or at least
I guess it doesn't really matter.
It kills itself. So the important thing is that they leave, but unbeknownst to them, an infected monkey has escaped their grasp and has been captured by exotic pet.
And there's also
poachers.
A sort of upper level government conspiracy thing going on with Morgan Freeman's doctor character and this other military guy who both know that this virus in this town I don't know if they know this at this point, but they figure it out, is the same
They
virus
figure it
that
out pretty
was
quickly.
in Vietnam 30 years ago. How this virus moved to Vietnam, I don't know, but it's a
How this
whole
virus moved from Vietnam to Africa?
it's
Who
a whole thing. You
knows?
know, these military movies always have to have like an antagonist character that takes the militarianism too far so that the heroes look good doing their military stuff. It's such a standard like plot setup.
Yeah.
But like I was saying, like they try to make these guys scientists, so at first we were like, okay, well, like at first there's not too much drama or there's not too much action. They're like scientists, they're figuring stuff out scientifically. But even at the beginning, there's this feeling of like, at some point, this movie is going to go full army movie, isn't it? And it absolutely does.
Yeah.
And we'll get to that.
It goes all in on the army man.
Yeah. So there's a whole
Army
sequence
man
of this
saves the
virus.
day.
There's a whole sequence of this virus spreading from the monkey to a guy who was part of the crew that shipped the monkey to another guy who bought the monkey, who took the monkey from where it was shipped to sell it to a pet store, and then that monkey gives it to another monkey, and then that monkey gives it to the pet store owner, and the guy who took the monkey lets the monkey out in the forest because he's a moron after he couldn't sell it to the pet store. He just lets it out. Then that guy goes and kisses his girlfriend while he's sick, and then they go to the movie theaters, and then it spreads, and in the light of coronavirus, that was such an uncomfortable and annoying part of the movie. I kept blocking the screen. I'm like, no, no viruses. They're just like if you want.
My favorite part about that scene, that section you were just describing, is when he's on the plane and
oh god, he gets on a plane and he's like coughing all over everybody.
Oh my god! And so a kid shows up to offer him like a cookie. And it's like the world's most disgusting looking cookie you've ever seen.
No, it's not a kid offering him a cookie. He has a cookie, and the kid's like, "Can I eat your cookie?" And we're just screaming like, "No!"
Even if we didn't know he was an infected person, no, kid. Don't eat strangers' food.
Kid's got like a toy cowboy hat on, and he's just running around the plane. I hate how movies portray plane rides. There's always like 10 rows, and there's always like 10 seats per row, and people just walk around the aisles all the time. That is not what being on a plane is like.
Everyone sits down, shuts up,
and like minds their own business. If a kid came up to me on an airplane and was like, "Hi, mister," I'd like glare at him, dude.
I wouldn't even do that. I would just dead ass stare straight forward, thinking if I pretend he doesn't exist.
Yeah, exactly. I've done that. Pretend you're sleeping, right? Like, yeah. But that whole sequence is just
the parents are there like, as long as the kid does not shit themselves, it's not my fucking problem what happens on this flight.
So there's this whole sequence of the virus spreading that is just painful to watch in the current era. Just painful. And it seems like the movie's trying to like show how a virus can actually spread. And I mean, I guess it does a good job, but the major problem is the fact that this virus kills way too fast.
It can infect you within a day, and then it can kill you within that same day.
Yeah, except for the first monkey who brought it to America, which inexplicably that monkey never dies or even shows signs of being infected. He just gives the virus to other people. So the only way they can have this virus spread in the movie is by having one agent of it that somehow never dies from it. So because it kills way too fast for anyone to actually be a super spreader. Yeah, exactly.
A super spreader needs to not know they have it and be able to move to multiple places within like a long time span.
Yeah.
This disease will kill you within like not even a week. Half a week if you're extremely lucky.
The movie is also super inconsistent about how much you can be exposed to without being infected.
Right.
So this
because
whole...
it seems to start as like a blood disease or whatever.
Yeah.
But then it becomes airborne,
yeah.
and it becomes like stupidly airborne. Where like you just need to be in the room with an infected person.
There's a point at the there's a point in the movie.
You're not
no,
like
go ahead.
You can just
finish.
be in the room with an infected person in some of these scenes, and if you're not wearing the protective gear, the movie will make it so you're infected.
And even if you are wearing protective gear, there's a scene where after the major characters get to this town where the infection has broken out. There's this town where the infection is broken out, and they did get one thing about virus world right. Massive amounts of protesters on the streets freaking out because they want to be
minor
free.
inconvenience.
Yeah. Now, granted, in this scenario, they're a little more justified because the military has literally rolled into this town and is like establishing like military control.
Like even in like some of the more like authoritarian countries, I don't think they've done a straight up military established quarantine.
Yeah. So there's this whole sequence. So they're in this town. The doctors are there. Bruce Willis, Kevin Spacey, Cuba Gooding Jr. trying to figure out how to cure this thing. And at one point, Dustin Hoffman's... Did I call him Bruce Willis again? Oh my god, I did. Dustin Hoffman's wife is there as well, or ex-wife. There's this whole subplot about their romance and them being divorced and then them falling in love by the end that I just very quickly was like, okay, this is the standard Hollywood required love story in the movie, and I really don't care. So she's there.
It goes to show how little chemistry that they have, that Kevin Spacey was a better love interest for both of them.
Yeah, dude. She's there with she's there with the CDC because God forbid the woman character be in the military. God
forbid.
Yeah, and so Bruce Willis's hazmat suit gets a tear in it, and so he freaks out. He's like,
Bruce Willis again.
Yeah, he freaks out. He's like, I'm exposed. And then like Dustin Hoffman's ex-wife takes him into a separate room and is like, calm down, and she like puts her hand on his shoulder, and then a few scenes later he's like in a hospital bed, all red-faced, like he's clearly been seriously infected, and she's like trying to fix it, and it's unclear whether this happens while she was injecting him or while she was comforting him earlier, but somehow, despite being in a hazmat suit the whole time, she manages to catch the virus from Kevin Spacey, who honestly shouldn't have even been able to catch it in the first place. Like, if this thing can go through layers of clothing like it does for her, she literally removes like several layers of glove and she's somehow bleeding through them all. If this movie can go through all of these things, then everyone in the movie should be infected. Especially when you see what Dustin Hoffman and Cuba Gooding Jr. get up to in the third act. They should have been infected like ages ago.
And they should have infected everyone that they came in contact with.
For me, I think Kevin Spacey getting the virus is actually where the movie really starts to fall downhill, because this is where it just it just completely loses any sense of like reality as to how a virus would spread and work.
It also becomes less of like a we need to cure this deadly epidemic, and more of a we need to get the truth out there to stop this government conspiracy.
Yeah, because the government is trying to well, for one thing, there's already an antibody created for this virus, but the virus mutated, so they need like a new... I guess the movie was implying that they need a sample from this monkey who brought the virus to America in order to adjust the vaccine.
I don't know how they wouldn't have to make an entirely new vaccine.
Yeah, it's not clear, but for some reason in the third act, the mission of this movie becomes retrieve the monkey retrieve the monkey to create a vaccine to save the people of the town, including his wife, because the stakes have to be personal, before the military firebombs this American town to stop the spread.
Personal.
Yeah, personal. There's a scene where his wife and Kevin Spacey are like grieving with each other, and it's like they act like they have romantic chemistry in that scene. It's like, how well do you even know Kevin Spacey's character? Why do you have more chemistry with him in this one scene than Dustin Hoffman in the entire movie?
It's absurd.
Also, this movie is a big fan of whisper speak, mumble speak. In fact, I think all 3 movies we watched are big on mumble speak.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Tetsuo if Iron Man was.
Iron Man was kind of dialogue light, actually. So
yeah, it didn't have a lot of dialogue to begin with, and I don't remember much of it. Like, it was probably said quietly, but it was also said relatively.
It was also in Japanese,
audibly.
and we had subtitles. So
yeah.
So anyway, this is where they decide that this is where the movie goes full action comedy, army military comedy. And this shift is made very clear by a scene in which Cuba Gooding Jr. and Dustin Hoffman, not in quarantine gear, leave their research facility in their military uniforms, tell the guy guarding the helicopters that
They Bugs Bunny him, basically.
Yeah, so they say something about a bathroom break. There's some sort of pee joke that's like supposed to be funny, but is just weird because it's literally the only time the movie has joked so far. And then they steal a helicopter and fly off the base, not in any sort of protective anything. And that's where the third act begins, and you can literally see by their outfit change how the movie has switched from this is a movie about scientists, doctors trying to solve a virus to this is an action army movie with helicopters, and it quickly devolves.
This is a movie about army man in army helicopter.
Yeah, it quickly devolves from there. They fly to San Francisco, hijack a news station that is actively reporting that they are infected, and then they come in and say, "We're not infected. If you've seen this monkey, please call this number." And it's like, and I'm just sitting there like, "But you probably are infected."
Yeah.
So then once they put this monkey on the news, they then go to where the monkey is because this little girl has made friends with it. This little girl that somehow does not get infected by it.
Somehow.
They use the little girl as bait to lure out the monkey because of course they
literally say, "We're going to use her as bait." And she's like, "I understand the risks. I think for some reason I'm British."
They comfort the girl multiple times and have physical contact with her multiple times, so it's like, good lord, they should all be infected. So then they manage to get the monkey. Then other military guys come after them. They have a helicopter chase. That's when it's like, okay, when you have a helicopter chase in your virus movie, like you've jumped the shark. You've jumped the shark with the helicopter.
They have a helicopter chase, and then in the big finale, they have a Mexican standoff
between a helicopter and the plane that's supposed to be bringing the bomb in, and the guy Dustin Hoffman in the helicopter is like, "You have to stand down. We have a vaccine." And then the other military guy is also on the radio being like, "Don't listen to him. You have an order, sir." And there's this whole like annoying back and forth that happens. And then Morgan Freeman tells him to fly the helicopter in the way of the plane because he's turning on his military master. And then the helicopter flies in front of the plane, and the plane moves around it and then drops the bomb in the ocean, and so they've saved the day. And then Morgan Freeman turns to the military guy and is like, "I'm taking command. You're under arrest." Which, if he could have done that, why didn't he do that earlier when they were arguing?
Why not when they literally said, "We have a vaccine"?
So then they go back to the town. Somehow, it's really unclear how this vaccine is made because this movie stopped caring about the doctor stuff
Right.
ages ago.
Yeah.
The vaccine is just kind of made off screen, and then everything is fine.
Which is absurd because of how fucking deadly this disease has been and apparently how infectious it is.
Well, it's deadly until the third act. Do you even see anyone new get infected with it in the third act?
No, and like the wife had it for a while and she didn't look like she was dying.
I have never seen a movie so like tonal shift from like and like unintentionally. Like the first two acts are like this what would happen if a virus spread, not a very good or realistic depiction, but still like an engaging one, and then it turns into like corny, stupid action movie where they with one-liners and everything at a very like you can pinpoint that exact scene in which it shifts. And it's just it's bad. Don't watch it. It's not even really fun bad. It's just kind of
it's just generic. Kind of generic.
You can really predict where the plot is going to go.
And maybe part of that is just like, well, we've gotten other infection movies, so we know what happens in them.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know. I hear good. I never saw Contagion, but the trailers when it came out looked good. Looks like a good sort of quasi horror movie. So just watch Contagion maybe then.
Yeah, I don't know. Before we get to the next movie, can we pause for a second? I gotta get a water.
Sure.
And I also want to test I also want to test my recording. So.
Right.
All right, we're back. I have water, and I'm gonna need it because we're about to dive into the real.
The cream of the crop.
Yeah, the seriously fear-inducing Tetsuo the Iron Man, which I was just looking up. Apparently, none of these characters had names, really.
No, they were man, woman with glasses.
Yeah, metal fetishist.
And isn't this man?
I guess. The original Tetsuo the Iron Man is a very simple movie presented in a very strange and experimental manner.
Yeah. It's the best comparison I guess I can make is probably David Lynch in the sense
of like, it's very Lynchian. There's a lot of weird visuals, a lot of weird sound choices. So basically the plot of the movie, as we mentioned earlier, is the businessman, the man, he hits the metal fetishist with his car, which is the movie opens with this guy sticking a metal rod in his leg, which is in a very graphic scene.
Graphic.
I'm not sure if it being in black and white made the scene more uncomfortable or less.
I think it made it more uncomfortable, but more palatable.
Yeah, I agree.
Because if it had been in color, it would have been probably like straight up unwatchable.
Yeah.
But because it's in black and white,
it being in black and white had this nice aesthetic quality of kind of like making this bloody guy seem sort of machine, like the line between man and it added to the themes. The whole movie's in black and white, much like The Lighthouse that we talked about last time. It's black and white, not widescreen. So it starts.
I think this was not widescreen because
it's 1989.
Bad transfer.
Yeah, that's true.
Before we get into more of the movie as a whole, it is insane to me that like you can barely find Tetsuo the Iron Man. You can sort of find Tetsuo the Bullet Man. You can't find Tetsuo Body Hammer, the second one in the trilogy, seemingly anywhere.
Except maybe YouTube. Like I saw it recommended on YouTube, but I didn't. Part of it was I didn't want to pay for it. Right. Tetsuo the Iron Man had a free upload that somebody did, so it was like I just watched that. Much like Joe's Apartment did last time. It's like if these movies are obscure enough, the copyright holder doesn't care. And then Tetsuo the Bullet Man was on Amazon. No, it was on Hulu.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
It might have also been on Amazon, but that's not what we watched it on.
So Tetsuo the Iron. So anyway, this guy sticks the metal. What?
Where do we even begin with this movie?
Yeah, I feel like describing it scene by scene is not the way to go, because this is such a bizarre movie that we couldn't even like. This is a movie. We've had movies before where we're like, what is going on? But most of the time it's because the movies are badly written or badly shot. This all feels very purposeful and intentional, but it's intentionally weird and confusing and non-linear.
And ambiguous.
Yeah,
and non-linear. Very non-linear.
It starts out... It's important to say how it starts out, because that ends up being relevant to the story. The guy sticks the metal rod in his leg. Then he freaks out and
he sees maggots in it, and then he runs away.
He runs into the street, gets hit by a car, and then we cut to this, like, sexy sax music over the title card, Tetsuo the Iron Man, which is a gore... This movie loves to be loud and intense, and then, like, quiet down and relax for a minute, and then be loud and intense, which made volume control really interesting. Because the dialogue is... It was worse in Bullet Man, because Bullet Man tries to do the same thing, but does it worse. In
Bullet Man, there's a character that straight up only speaks in whispers.
Yeah. But even Tetsuo the Iron Man, I was like, where do I put the volume at for this? There are scenes where the soundtrack is like... and it's very aggressive, and there's like people freaking out. A lot of the scenes look like a 80s new wave music video. Like, look and sound like an 80s new wave music video, with just these characters, like, spazzing around as they transform into metal things, weird interlaced shots of futuristic metal stuff and scrap yards. The music is, like, pressing techno, overbearing stuff.
Right.
And it creates this really intense atmosphere that then they, like, every time it gets quiet, it's like, oh, here's a moment to breathe. But then eventually, by the end of the sequence, it is built back up to this, like, in-your-face music.
The only comparison that I can really make to it is probably Akira, because Akira also has a very sort of technology-heavy story with a lot of technological themes around technology. It's also got a really sort of industrial sounding soundtrack.
Yeah. Does Akira have the weird sexual stuff though?
No.
This movie has a lot of weird sexual stuff.
Okay. There's this straight up fucking in this movie, like they don't show penis or vagina, but like I'm pretty sure those actors weren't pretending they were fucking.
Oh God.
And there's also a man having butt sex forced upon him.
Yes. By a creepy robot. This is like in his dream.
Oh my God. The woman with the phallus hose pipe.
Okay, I'll say most of the movie I, like, enjoyed and could probably say that, like, the weirdness was, like, intentional and interesting. That scene, I could have done without that.
I don't think it helps.
Like, it essentially establishes the idea that he's going crazy and, like... But there's no real connection between his girlfriend and this creepy metal robot version of his girlfriend that he's seeing in his dreams. It's this, like...
If anything, it makes it more confusing because it seems like she is part robot.
But she's not.
But she is not.
Yeah, so I feel like that's the one scene I could have done without.
Right. There's also that weird... it's not really sexual, but there's that scene where he's like getting chased around by the woman
he gets chased around by this woman who's infected by the metal thing. But then the weird thing is later in the movie it's established that he got infected because he was the guy who hit the metal fetishist with a car.
Right.
And
And throughout the rest of the movie, we kind of, whenever we thought about that scene, we asked ourselves, okay, wait, was that in his dreams or did that actually happen? Because the effect they used made it seem like it was a dream, but they used that effect later in the movie
to show the metal people running
speed.
really fast. It's weird. And
It's
I'm not. That's the one part of the movie I feel like there's a whole segment there, the chase sequence and then the weird sex dream where I really have no idea what this movie was going for in those sections. But then his transformation begins, and that's a little more...
The transformation begins as he is having as he is fucking his girlfriend, as they are having actual sex, not dream sex.
I was gonna say part of the reason we don't see any penises is because his penis turns into a drill, which is just bizarre.
It was glorious.
Yes, it was glorious.
A glorious scene.
This movie has a pretty I love the weird Japanese humor.
Yeah.
There's this very specific kind of absurdist, weird Japanese humor, and part of the problem I had with Tetsuo the Bullet Man, which we'll get to later, is that movie tries to appeal to
completely.
Yes, it tries to appeal to an American audience, and every piece of Japanese media I've seen that is trying to attract Americans removes the weird Japanese humor and makes itself less interesting. Gunhead did the exact same thing, and that movie was painfully boring.
Yeah. The only movie that I can think of that was based on a Japanese piece of media that's made for Americans that doesn't scrub out literally all of the, not even that it doesn't it scrubs out the comedy, just that it doesn't scrub out all of the comedy, is probably the Speed Racer adaptation by the Wachowskis.
Yeah, that would be my biggest fear of any like a part of me would love to see live action JoJo adaptations, but that if it was made, they would
cut out all of the
a version that cuts out all the inherent weirdness of JoJo would. I mean, that's literally
not JoJo.
Yeah, it's not JoJo, and that's literally the entire appeal of JoJo is the weirdness.
I know that's not JoJo because that exists and it's called Fist of the North Star.
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
Fist of the North Star is good because it has the most badass motherfucker to ever badass motherfuck.
Yeah.
Shiro. Sorry, we're getting off on another JoJo
It wouldn't be
tangent.
a Fear podcast episode if we didn't go on a random JoJo-related tangent.
Did we already name episode 3 after a JoJo reference? Because I feel like this episode will just be called "What's with all the JoJo references?"
This isn't even the most we've done though. But anyway, so there's the penis drill is the biggest example of this movie's weird sense of humor, because the dude's
humor and also horror.
Yeah, and horror. Yeah, the movie is very into the body horror element of this guy transforming into this metal thing, because his body parts don't just transform into metal. He almost absorbs the metal around him, and
the metal pierces through his flesh.
Yeah, so there's
earlier in the film where he's shaving and it looks like a screw is poking out of his cheek.
Yeah, there's and I think being in black and white helps this. I think if this movie were in color, you would notice the prosthetics more.
Right.
But because it's black and white, you have the colors of the flesh and the metal merged together, and so the prosthetics are really, really convincing and very. So yeah,
in the scene where he gets the drill penis, his girlfriend before this point is trying to reassure him, don't worry, I don't care that you're becoming a weird metal freak. I can take it. And then he gets the drill penis, and she's like, I might have to rescind that offer. And he kind of goes insane because, I guess
he's
because
I'm transforming into a monster. And it's unclear in this scene whether he's attacking her or trying to protect her. There's a whole weird sequence where they're running around the house.
My guess is that he was he's trying to hold himself back maybe.
Yeah.
But also that like he's like kind of given up at this point because the one person he loves has kind of rejected him.
Mm-hmm. It's very like Frankenstein's monster sort of like fear of the transformation.
But the reason the drill penis is so important is because at some point he like knocks himself out, and then the woman seems like she's about to run away, but then she turns back to him and like lovingly strokes his face, and then we cut away to like a dream sequence, and then when we cut back, the woman is riding his drill penis as it is like as it is like tearing into her body, and like blood is flying everywhere, but like she keeps going, and I think she legitimately like doesn't stop until she either dies or reaches orgasm, or possibly both at the same time.
This movie merges
the sex and the death
and violence and that stuff very interestingly. I'm not sure if it's good, but it's interesting.
That's how I would describe this movie. I'm not sure if it was good, but it was definitely one of the most interesting thing I've seen in a while.
Yeah. So she dies via drill fuck, and then
via the drill penis.
He puts her in like a bathtub that he fills with water, like to sort of
We're probably missing some like weird psychedelic dream sequences in there.
Yeah, there's tons of weird flashing metal scrapyard visuals throughout this movie.
We keep cutting back to
the metal fetishist who's like somehow not dead. It's
when
very
we first
confusing.
Saw that, we thought he was like inside the guy's head.
Yeah. This movie is very, very confusing.
So eventually, he gives his girlfriend sort of a makeshift funeral by dumping her in a bathtub and then filling it with flowers.
I honestly don't really remember what happens after that. The next part where I was starting to get a hold of the story was when the there's a lot of weird stuff after that.
After that, the metal fetishist is like, all right, my time to shine. So
he's basically reborn.
Super speed runs over to businessman's apartment, where he then begins to like enter the building through the metal pipes.
I'll explain this part because I'm really proud of myself for figuring out what he was doing.
All right, you go ahead.
Because this movie isn't crazy hard to figure out. Every time I thought I was like, okay, I think I know what's happening here, something would throw a wrench in it. So what he does is he can like mold his body into metal things, and they show this with this weird like speed up. That's another thing the movie does a lot, speed up footage, which is another very like 80s new wave music video thing. So he goes to the dude's house, he puts his hand on a pipe, he like dissolves that pipe and absorbs into it. He goes through the pipe into the girl's body, then chases the infected dude into the... we were trying to figure out who Tetsuo was. There is no Tetsuo.
I think Tetsuo is just meant to be like the main name for the disease.
Yeah, I guess. The
Tetsuo disease.
So he goes inside the girl's body and starts attacking Drill Penis Man, and then the body like dissolves away, and he like pops out of it, and he's got like this spiky hair and this crazy-eyed look.
He looks like an anime villain.
Yeah, and this is where the movie, we're like, okay, now we're getting into a metal machine man robot fight. There's one man who's being infected and is constantly just absorbing more and more metal onto his body and is like doesn't know how to deal with it, and one guy who's completely in control of his powers.
And then oh god. And then we basically just get a Benny Hill sketch.
They're running around town. Metal fetishist is making the main character-ish. I don't know what to call him because his name is Man.
He's making Man.
He's making Man like absorb more metal. And this sequence is very like... Even this sequence doesn't go full like super powered movie fight. It's still more like this weird body horror where he's just like attaching more and more metal to this dude to the point where the guy is literally this giant mound of like metal parts, and he just keeps
he
doing
doesn't
it.
like seem to have any way of fighting back.
And then the metal dude absorbs. Oh yeah, then the metal fetishist gives some exposition, which is like the only time in this movie that they try to explain anything going on with dialogue.
And like you couldn't really hear it, and it didn't make sense.
Well, he says stuff like, the rust from the metal pipe fused with my blood cells and created this Tetsuo disease. I mean, he doesn't call it the Tetsuo, but that's what I'm going to call it. And that's that element. I'm like, oh, okay, that makes a little more sense now. It still doesn't explain.
That's the part that makes sense.
And it's also somewhere during that fight, they have a flashback that reveals that the guy driving the car that hit the metal fetishist was the man.
Yeah, and then we like see them hiding the body, or at least doing what they think is hiding the body.
Him and his girlfriend hide the body.
And then they have sex in the park, and that's a flashback that comes back a lot.
Yeah,
it shows up in the beginning of the movie. It shows up in the middle of the movie. It shows up in the end of the movie.
This movie is very
every scene that they think they can get away with showing it, they will show it.
They're very weird about in meshing these sexual elements with this. And that's something Tetsuo the Bullet Man almost completely removes, because it's the most weirdly, like, specifically Japanese thing in there.
And then
Man eventually absorbs, after this exposition dump, Man absorbs Metal Fetishist into his metal collective.
Yeah.
And then
I don't think we need to talk about the weird hobo fight that happened.
That's some weird hobo dude shows up and beats up the main character for a little bit for no reason,
and it somehow affects Metal Fetishist.
Yeah,
it doesn't really make sense.
It wasn't really cool. I feel like the two of them might have been linked somehow. There was this linking thing. I feel like there is a weird like a sort of there may be a poorly done sort of homosexuality allegory in this movie, because the two metal characters fighting each other, sort of like in the end of the movie, they absorb into each other in this very like. There's some very like suggestive looking shots during this scene of what is essentially metal porn.
It's very violent and graphic and weird and bizarre.
And
then it ends with them fused together.
Yeah, they fuse together and they finally accept their, in the allegory, homosexuality and become one. And I don't know if that's intentional by the creator, and if it is, it's like very poorly done. But
it would also go to explain all of the sex that happened.
And even in the end of the movie, the two of them form this giant robot and just like drive around town like, we're gonna metalize the whole world. And the last, like one of the last shots of the movie, I don't think you noticed this, but they show like the metal contraption from like, there's the base and then there's a long pole at the top, and they showed the top of this pole, and I'm like, wait, it's a penis. They form a giant penis with the shaft and the like expansion at the end and everything. It's literally just a giant metal penis. And this is like one of the last shots of the movie, and he didn't notice, and I was like, I was just like, it's a penis.
That's a penis.
So, yeah, it's very weird. Like they literally come together to form a giant metal penis. So, this movie is. Did we mention this movie is weird and sexual?
It's weird and sexual and bizarre. I can't even say I necessarily hated it, but it's one of the strangest movies we've seen on this podcast, and that's saying something.
It's not something I'd ever watch again, but I like looking back on it, I can like appreciate at least some of it's insane.
We're probably gonna end up exercising this movie, not because we think it's bad or ungodly, but simply because it needs Jesus. It needs Jesus, y'all.
Needs Jesus.
It's so bizarre and strange.
It really is.
And
also, after the credits, the movie says "Game Over." For some reason, there's no other video gamey elements in this movie, so I have no idea why the movie ends in the text "Game Over."
Because
the weird sexy sax music plays at the end and at the beginning, so it's like it's just reinforcing the weird like sex theme. I mean, the dude's called the Metal Fetishist. The whole movie is like
Metal Fetish the movie.
Metal porn.
Metal porn.
And it's like excessive.
That's the new Metal Gear game.
Kojima, dude, I bet Kojima has seen this movie. I'd be very surprised if Kojima hasn't seen this movie.
Kojima saw this movie and said, "I'm going to base my entire career off of this movie."
So yeah, that's Tetsuo the Iron Man.
That's Tetsuo the Iron Man. Oh boy.
What a strange movie. And the house I'm at right now, the smart TV is like in the living room. So I had to wait. We had to wait to watch this movie until my grandparents were out of the house, and my aunt was upstairs doing work. And there was a couple of times where she comes down, and I'm like, should I pause? Do I need to pause? What's happening here? What's happening in the movie right now?
Although I don't know if pausing would make it worse.
There were some scenes where pausing would have made it worse. She asked what movie I was watching, and I was like, a movie. I was like,
a movie.
A movie. But then we watched Tetsuo the Bullet Man, which wasn't quite so...
It wasn't as zany or bizarre.
Yeah. It was really trying to appeal to an American audience. Like, the main character had an American father and a Japanese mother, and almost all the dialogue was English. Even, like, there was English text on screen for a lot of scenes.
Even like the dialogue between Japanese characters.
Even English. Every once in a while, a character in the movie would speak Japanese, which was actually really annoying because I turned on subtitles, right? So I could hear, because the English dialogue, so much of it is spoken in a whisper, and the movie jumps between loud and quiet a bunch in a way less artful way than the original did. So it basically just becomes an annoyance. So I had the volume down, but I had to have the subtitles on to know what the dialogue was. But then... frickin' Hulu, of course, when the characters speak Japanese, a subtitle would show up at the bottom that said "man speaking Japanese," and it would cover up the in-movie English subtitles translating the Japanese.
Thanks, Hulu.
Thanks, Hulu. Very cool.
Why is every streaming platform so terrible? Like they're all terrible at UI except for Netflix. Debatably,
Netflix. These other streaming services need to poach Netflix's UI designers.
Each of them has one thing that they excel at being terrible at. It seems like
each streaming service has one thing.
Each streaming service has one thing where it seems like they excel at doing exactly one thing terribly. They might also do one thing extremely well, but they will also consequently do one thing extremely terribly.
There's no perfect streaming service, and the more that get made, the less a perfect streaming service is possible.
Yeah.
But that's a different topic.
That's an entirely
let's
different.
Let's talk Tetsuo the Bullet Man.
Like you said earlier, the best way I could describe this movie is it's the original, but less artsy. And
yes, exactly. It's less artsy. The original, but they were trying to tone it down a bit so that an American audience could actually enjoy it. And in the process, they removed the sexual stuff, which, I'm good with.
But they also remove most of the body horror.
Yeah, instead of the guy absorbing metal pieces, he just kind of transforms into metal. which at first looks really dumb. They end up making it look kind of cool by the end, but it still doesn't have the same, like, grotesque weirdness of the original. The whole movie is lacking in that grotesque weirdness, and that makes it kind of boring.
Yeah. We'll actually talk about the plot of this movie because it has a plot.
Yes, this movie tries to plot things out a lot more, which helps with coherence and watchability, but also, like, makes as another factor that makes it less interesting. So the movie, just like the original, the movie's inciting incident is a car accident, except it's not even an accident, really. The main character is out with his son, walking. His son's playing in the road. He's like, "Get out of the way for this car to pass by." The car passes by, stops next to the main character, whose name is Anthony. The kid jumps back into the road. The car backs up to hit him, and then, like, pulls forward a few times and backs up again. It's pretty, like what the fuck?
Yeah.
They don't really show much. I feel like
because the editing is terrible.
Yeah, well, they also do a kind of clever thing of the kids behind the car, so you don't see it. You just see, like, sort of
you see
oil.
The aftermath.
You see, like, oil leaking from the front of the car. Oil and blood sort of mixed together, which is a sort of nice, like, usage of what the original did with its black and white format, where the blood was black and it sort of looked like tar.
This film also had, like, a very pale color palette.
Yes,
I guess
it was trying to look like it was kind of black and white.
It was very pale and contrast heavy.
It's very clear that this movie was trying to, like, recreate the original, but sort of make it accessible. The problem is, it's just, like, even outside of the accessibility, removing some of the interesting aspects. I need to be quieter. I need to talk quieter. I just got a text from my dad. I'll talk quieter. Where was I?
Why this movie's like the color palette.
The color palette. Well, even outside of the movie being, like, the accessibility, removing some of the weirdness, there's also the aspect of it's just not as well made. Like, you can tell they're trying to do the same thing that the original did, where they go from quiet moments to loud, overbearing moments, but instead of having the quiet build into the loud, they just, like, jump. But like it'll just be a quiet scene, and then all of a sudden there's flashes of metal and spazzing, and it's and so it just ends up being annoying rather than, like, artistic.
And the edit, and, like, Jesus Christ, like
this is a very late 2000s, early 2010s movie, in that there's a lot of shaky cam.
There's a lot of shaking cam, and there's also a lot of editing tricks that are like, what is this doing in a movie in the late 90s, in the late 2000s, early 2010s?
Yeah, it's
like
trying to be weird.
Like the head shake, you know.
Oh, yeah. It's trying to be weird and chaotic like the original, but it doesn't have a good grasp of, like, what that weird chaoticness should be,
or what it was about, or like the chaos, because the original is chaotic, but it's also, like, it controlled chaos.
Yes, this is not controlled chaos.
The creators of that film clearly knew what they were trying to do, and were trying and how to do that. Mm-hmm. That does not seem to be the case with this film.
No. Why don't you go into the plot a little bit from here?
Okay. So what was his name again?
Anthony? The main character's name is
Anthony. Yeah. So Anthony sees his son get run over. That puts him and his wife into a grieving period. During this grieving period, he talks with his father. Not much really comes of that. Honestly, the thinking about it, the father is a huge dropped ball, but I'll get to that later. At some point, Anthony, I can't even remember now for some reason. Let me check the IMDb. I'm gonna find this. Summary. Fuck you, IMDb.
What's
Fine
happening?
specimen. When able to come to the law, the pain father allows biomechanical transmutation. No, he doesn't. Okay, so
What
at some
information
point,
are you trying to find right now?
I'm trying to understand what leads into him getting like attacked by the gangsters and turning into a robot man.
Oh, I don't think they
Or
make
does
it
it
very
just
clear. There's this
does it
whole
just kind of come out of nowhere?
there's this whole element of Tetsuo as this like government thing that has
That comes
happened.
in later.
Yeah. Wait. When are you talking about?
I'm talking about
Oh,
like
the janitor that just beats him up for
Anthony.
no reason. I don't know why that
Right.
happened.
Yeah. I'm talking about like when Anthony initially transforms, when like he's getting attacked and
Which the aesthetic
for,
in that part is really bad. He basically just looks like a Two-Face, but half of his
it's
face is metal.
yeah. It's really bad. Like the effect is fine. The effect itself is fine,
But it's
but
just
just
when
the
you
look
compare it
of
to the
it
original, where there were like gears and stuff just like attaching themselves to his face, it's so much less interesting.
and the fact that he's like that for like 20 straight minutes and 10 of those minutes are exposition.
This movie has too
It's
much exposition. He literally, after he gets beat up by this janitor dude for some reason,
and then gets shot and seemingly killed.
yeah, he wakes up
He
because he absorbs the bullets. He's the bullet man.
the bullet man. He never fires a single bullet.
Yeah, well, he
That
has a machine gun at the end somehow. They really
somehow.
only, I feel like they only called this Bullet Man so it wouldn't have the exact same title as the original because they weren't committing to make it a reboot. There's this whole secret government Tetsuo conspiracy which alludes to previous metallic Tetsuo events, presumably ones from the first movie or the second movie that we didn't watch. I don't know. I feel like if there's
Again,
anything the second movie might have done, is the second movie might have established the sort of government corporation idea.
yeah. In
Because,
the original, it was just like there was a scientist who was being an asshole to the metal fetishist.
yeah, and he created
That's about it.
Yeah. Um, and that scientist is only seen in like one flashback scene where he delivers some dialogue about metal in the brain. It's weird and obscure,
In
like
this,
the rest of the movie.
the project is the whole crux of the thing.
Yeah, the project is the
because
whole plot. Because Anthony's dad was basically the creator of this project.
Right, and Anthony's dad's wife, and so Anthony's mother ends up getting terminal cancer, and in a bid to save her life, Anthony's father recreates her DNA inside of a Tetsuo android.
And then
He
has sex with that android.
Has sex with that android to create Anthony.
Which that sort of element of the movie is the only time that the sort of weird sexual stuff is like kind of hinted at.
They replaced the weird sexual theme in this movie with the theme of characters constantly singing "Hush, Little Baby."
Oh yes, there's this whole thing where the main character Anthony only transforms into this metal form when he gets upset, very angry, and the idea is that this
Hulk.
DNA has been inside of him his whole life because he is the child of this Tetsuo creation, but it never activated because his kid
ever.
Yeah, until his kid died somehow. So basically the guy who ran over the kid, which I think was supposed to be the dude that shows up at the end to fight him. That dude,
that's what they seem to be implying.
That dude is trying to awaken the Tetsuo so that he can get the it's confusing.
It's not clear. It's not clear if he wants to become a Tetsuo himself or if he simply just wants to like, I guess, die an honorable death.
Yeah. So anyway, Anthony goes down into a basement, reads all these files about the dad's research in this really poorly presented sequence that somehow manages to do exposition with images. Like, I can't even say it was show don't tell because it was only showing, but it was showing in such a way that felt like it was literally just showing like words on a piece of paper and images that had no context.
Showing us in a way that it was just telling us.
Yeah.
And it was telling us
telling us poorly. I'm like, what's going on? I literally don't know. And this scene goes on for way too long.
It straight up is like 10 straight minutes
of just like
of
pictures and text
exposition.
on the screen. It's really bad.
And then, like, after the scene, he gets out of the basement.
This is the basement of his house because
Some house. It's not entirely clear.
I think it's his house because they show him in the movie earlier in this house arguing with his father.
Maybe it's his father's house then?
Yeah, it's probably his father's house because his father. Yeah, because they show him in a different, nicer house. Like, yeah, I think it's his dad's house.
Either way, his wife, Anthony's wife, ends up showing up because she got a message from the people trying to kill Anthony to come to this house.
Yeah,
She then gets attacked. Anthony breaks through the floorboards and transforms into like the Bullet Man.
At this point, one thing I did like about this movie's aesthetic was in Tetsuo the Iron Man, no matter how metallic he became, no matter how much metal stuff he was covered with, there was always a part of his face you could see. In this movie, so in the beginning he's got the stupid Two-Face look, but eventually his whole head basically becomes this metallic thing.
It looks like an engine or maybe a gun.
Which I like that it covers his face because it makes him sort of look more inhuman. It kind of makes up for some of the lacking prosthetics in other areas, but it's also weird because the prosthetics have eye holes, so it kind of just looks like a weird mask.
Right,
a weird mask helmet thing. And they also use a lot of weird voice filters on him when he's covered in the metal, which sometimes sound good and sometimes sound jarring and weird.
Most of the time sound jarring and weird.
Especially, when they're first introduced, especially. It's like, literally, like, metal filter over my voice. It's like, oh god, is he going to sound like that the whole movie? And it gets, like, better, but it's still weird.
And then him and his wife, they get together. They're like, I thought I might have lost you or something. He tells her about his backstory that he just found out about.
Yeah, I never even finished what I was trying to say. This character is basically the Hulk because this DNA has been inside him all the time, and whenever he gets angry, that's when he transforms more, which is much less interesting than this virus disease that, like, absorbs metal onto your body. It's just much less interesting, and they have this thing where he sings this nursery rhyme to try to calm himself down, which is, like, interesting the first few times, but gets old pretty quickly.
I can't believe Avengers Age of Ultron ripped off Tetsuo the Bullet Man.
Oh my god, I forgot that was a thing in that, wasn't it? Didn't Black Widow sing a thing to him to calm him down?
The sun's getting real low.
Oh yeah, that's so weird. Yeah, they literally used the same thing.
Fuck Joss Whedon!
We were joking that Tetsuo the Iron Man is the Iron Man of this cinematic this universe, of course. Then Tetsuo Bullet Man is Hulk, and then of course Tetsuo Body Hammer is Thor.
Yeah.
All we need now is like the American Tetsuo soldier, and then we have.
And then the Tetsuo Nick Fury to come in and say, "You think you were the only human metal abomination hybrid?"
I deadass thought something like that was going to happen at the end of the movie because the ending is really weird, and we'll get into it.
The ending is really weird and bizarre. So Anthony is like, "I'm going to go kill that son of a bitch who killed my son." And the wife, who, keep in mind, by this point, like, once after the son dies, she has been doing nothing but saying, "Ethan or Anthony, whatever your name is, my husband.
Ethan Bourne.
We need to go kill that. We need to go kill that guy, and not just kill him, like torture kill him. I want him to suffer."
Yeah, she's very heated about this.
She's been saying all of this in like really hushed whisper tones.
Yeah, she is the one character who speaks mainly in whispers, and I think it's because
you cannot understand her.
Yeah, the actress herself, it's like pretty clear English is her second language. So I feel like she only knows how to deliver English dialogue in a whisper or like a scream. That's the two volumes her character talks.
You could not understand this character without subtitles. It is It is absurdly quiet.
Yeah.
But then, she's been like we need to kill this guy the whole movie. And then when she finds out the truth, she's like, no, Anthony, stop. Think about our future. Think about dramatic zoom in. The baby.
Because she's pregnant.
And it's revealed that she is pregnant.
And then Tetsuo, and then Anthony's like, oh, a baby brought into this world with my DNA can't be trusted. And there's a bunch of dumb stuff. He has a confrontation with his father.
And then Shinzo Abe walks into the screen and says, Japan needs to increase its native birth population by 25%. Sorry, no, that's just what the movie was implying.
Yeah, the movie is very like, please have children.
Please fuck people. Please fuck.
So anyway, this military group that was sent to take them out then gets taken out themselves by this other character who goes by the Informant. That's what they call him. I don't think he ever gets a real name.
He was the janitor guy who killed the kid and shot.
Oh wait, he was?
Anthony,
okay, see, I didn't quite make that connection.
Yeah, he's this. I don't know what they were trying to do with his character.
It's really unclear. They basically he grabs Anthony's wife, holds a gun to her head, and is like, "Kill me, kill me." I think the implication is that if Anthony kills this guy with his Tetsuo powers, then this guy will get the Tetsuo powers. But it's also implied in one scene that this guy could just shoot himself and get the Tetsuo powers. Like Persona 3 style, blah, Persona, and then it awakens. But he just doesn't. There's one scene where he's about to shoot himself, and then he goes, actually, I'd rather get shot by Anthony Tetsuo himself. And so then he goes to the house and starts doing all this crazy stuff. But it's just this weird dynamic of him daring Anthony to kill him, Anthony not killing him, Anthony chasing him around, and then there's an explosion. No.
Okay. At some point, the informant finds out that Anthony's wife is pregnant, and
so he's like, I'm gonna kill the baby. Oh no.
Well,
he does that weird shit. He puts
a bomb necklace on the wife, and he's like, Anthony, if you do not kill Anthony, if you do not kill me within a minute, I'm going to blow this bomb up and kill your wife. And then he runs away. Anthony gives chase, becomes more and more grotesquely monstrous as he becomes angrier and angrier. And then the very end of the movie is Anthony is like, this had serious Gunhead vibes where the informant was up on like this platform. And
he's chasing him through this bizarre metal pipe area. It's unclear how we even got here, but it's very Gunhead in aesthetic, and that it's just like
it's also Gunhead in what's happening on screen, because Anthony is repeatedly trying to climb a wall and then like keeps falling down and then getting back up and falling down and getting back up. And then it ends with him turning into like a huge gun laser that he's gonna like blow the informant away with and possibly wipe out an entire city. But then the wife comes in and sings Hush Little Baby to Ethan.
Yeah, the lullaby. And he calms down.
And that calms him down. And then the informant dies somehow.
The informant dies by like an accident. So Tetsuo didn't do it, which this is off topic, but there are way too many media, even some of my favorite pieces of media do this, where it's like you have one character saying, no, I'm not going to kill this guy because I'm a good person. Superhero stuff do this all the time, but no, I'm not going to kill this guy because I'm not like you. And then 5 seconds later, some on-screen accident conveniently kills said character. So it always feels like piece of media needs... The movie needs this character to be dead, but they don't want their protagonist to do it, so they find some right around. Even, I was just playing a part of Xenoblade, which is my favorite game of all time, but there is a cutscene in which the main character does this happens with the main character, and by all means, this villain character that he's saying we shouldn't kill is absolutely someone who deserves to die and shouldn't live anymore, but instead of them killing the guy, the guy just gets conveniently killed by his own hubris, essentially. And
because God forbid we have characters with strong moral integrity have to face consequences for that strong moral integrity, or explore interesting stories where maybe villains have to see the error of their ways and learn to change and legitimately change, not just, oh, I'm a good guy now.
Yeah.
Redemption aren't complete.
Now, granted,
God
there is
we have stories where characters our heroes are morally ambiguous and are willing to kill for the greater good, and we have to draw a line of what we constitute as killing that is worthy.
Now, granted, Xenoblade does later in the story introduce another villain who does naturally change his way. A lot of the things you're describing, Xenoblade does do later. And this scene is important in showing a change in the protagonist's mentality, so it's forgivable and it doesn't really hurt the story, but it's still a really awkward scene, out of context, and even in context to an extent. And it's like, if one of my favorite pieces of media is doing it, it's like so many, like, it's such a writing trope that I kind of hate that so many otherwise good things fall into.
Like, I can already think off of the top of my head of like 4 or 5 movies that have that trope.
I was watching Lion King earlier. Lion King does it too. Simba's like, I'm not gonna kill you, Scar. And then Scar, like, dirty attacks him and falls over the pit and then gets killed by hyenas. And so the protagonist doesn't have to be a killer.
Yeah. Which is weird, which is funny with like modern sort of action or superhero movies, because in those movies they'll kill people with like zero regard.
Yeah, which honestly, in a way, I kind of prefer to the moral debate stuff.
Well, I prefer it when I'll say like I guess I prefer it when that's not the point of the movie, is to have that debate about like the morality of superheroes. Mm-hmm. But if it is the point, it probably should be there. Just make sure you don't have your character accidentally killing people indiscriminately earlier in the movie for no good reason.
But
God, I don't. Should I burn our podcast to the ground already by saying I think Zack Snyder is a hack, or should I save that for a later point?
I feel like. See, I don't want to get HBO Max, but I feel like we have to watch the Snyder Cut.
Oh, do we have to?
I haven't seen the original movie.
I haven't either, but I know it wasn't very good.
Oh, yeah. And I don't think the Snyder... Hot take, maybe. I don't think the Snyder Cut's going to magically make that a good movie.
I mean, most of the movie... The Snyder Cut's probably going to just be some added scenes to the original. Yeah. They're not going to reshoot the entire fucking film just for ego.
Yeah.
Like most of the, like even before the Snyder Cut existed, a lot of the film was already done by Snyder.
Yeah. That's all. Like, Joss Whedon didn't change that much, as far as I understand. But whatever. We are so off topic.
We have burned this podcast to the ground before it has even gone out of infancy. Anyway,
let's talk about the weird ending now.
The ending of Tetsuo the Bullet Man is one of the most absurd and bizarre things I've ever seen.
Well, it's not even... You make it sound more interesting than it is. It's super anticlimactic.
It's anticlimactic and makes and just leaves you scratching your head like, what the fuck did I just see?
I would like to explain it. So... The villain character, the informant, at one point, like right before he dies, says, I'm inside your head now, or something, to Tetsuo. And somehow, I think he does kind of absorb him in a way, kind of like the original movie. So
he doesn't die by accident. Tetsuo literally absorbs him.
Yeah, that's right. He absorbs him, so he does kill him, but in a way that doesn't give him powers. It's stupid. So then you cut to a year later, or 3 years later, or something like that, and Anthony's just living a normal life. 5 years later. He's been reverted back to his original form.
Avengers Endgame also ripped this movie off.
Oh my god. He's been reverted back to his original form, it's implied that because he has a new child, he's not going to transform anymore. They have a shot of him looking in
Shinzo Abe.
Yeah. They have a shot of him looking in the mirror, and they play the audio clip of the informant being like, "I'm inside your head. Who knows what I'll do?" Which makes you think, "Oh, okay, there's going to be a final scene in which a final conflict in which he loses it." He then goes to work, walks past a group of weirdo gangster-ish men, briefly interacts with them, continues walking, and then the movie just ends. The weird whisper inside of his head goes nowhere. Nothing in that scene was necessary to the movie at all. And it just kind of ends in the weirdest anti-climax that feels like it's teasing a climax that doesn't exist. It almost feels like a really, really piss poor attempt at like sequel bait. Like sequel tease cliffhanger that just fails at even being a tease cliffhanger. And as far as I know, yeah. And as far as I know, this movie didn't get a sequel, so like.
No, this movie killed the entire Tetsuo franchise. Apparently.
I mean, it's not like the Tetsuo franchise was really all that alive. It sounds like they tried to revive it and make it successful, and then it didn't really do that.
Basically, they made a new movie every 10 years. Like
Tetsuo Body Hammer wasn't that far after the original, was it?
No, it was only like 92 or 93.
Yeah. I assume Tetsuo Body Hammer is kind of just more of the same of the original, so I thought it would be more interesting for the podcast to compare this original with this pseudo reboot / remake. And in that comparison, at least in my opinion, the original comes out as clearly the better movie.
Oh, absolutely.
It's also the harder movie to watch, but like
just on like a technical level alone.
Yeah.
Like, as chaotic and hard to absorb as the original is, it is light years ahead of the new one.
The new one just uses shaky cam and quick cuts to try to recapture the chaotic vibe.
It's a watered down version of the original with none of with like terrible editing and terrible camera work.
And messy plotting.
Which is funny because it's not like the original. It's not like the original set a high bar for story.
The original is a deceptively simple story told in a very complex, abstract manner, whereas the new one is an overly complex story told in a awkward manner.
Told in an awkward, hard to follow manner.
Yeah,
I would say overly simplistic, but it's not overly simplistic.
Yeah.
It's extremely annoying and in your face.
Mm-hmm. Bullet Man is hard to follow because it's poorly made. Iron Man is hard to follow because it's intentionally weird and vague.
Iron Man is hard to follow because it's very well made. It's that no one knows why it was made.
So, as far as recommending these movies, I would actually...
If you have the stomach for it, I would recommend Tetsuo the Iron Man.
But only if you're like down to watch some really weird sexual Japanese.
If you're down for watching all forms of penetration, if you know what I mean.
Drill.
Like, nudge, nudge. Drill penis.
Tetsuo the Bullet Man would have been 10 times better if he had a drill penis.
Oh, it would have been 1,000 times better. Can you imagine that scene where he is talking about being a monster and his wife is trying to comfort him, but he just has a massive drill penis?
It's huge, by the way. It's like
it is like,
and it literally okay. The reveal of it is it basically alien chest bursting out of his pants, and I was like, this is just Japan's version of the alien chest burster scene.
Japan. Is this episode just going to be called Japan? Just going to be called Japan?
Maybe. I don't know. So now we should do our exorcism.
All right. Which do we want to exercise?
Tetsuo the Iron Man.
Tetsuo the Iron Man.
We need.
That's the one.
Yeah, we need to exorcise Tetsuo the Iron Man of its drill penis demons.
We need to exercise the drill penis.
Exercise.
All right, I'm gonna go grab a blank CD case that we're going to use as our stand-in for Tetsuo the Iron Man.
Okay.
And then I'm gonna do that live on air.
Yep. I hope I wasn't too loud. I mean, my dad texted me saying I was very loud. I don't know if he can hear what I'm talking about loud or just like.
Forgot, I actually have Tetsuo the Iron Man.
Oh, that's right. You got it on DVD. Yeah. Exercise that shit.
There it is.
There he is.
All of its glory.
Tetsuo the Iron Man. I'm gonna put it in speaker view so you're full screen.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah, I can hear you. Let's do it.
All right. Tetsuo, you have committed. You may not be cursed with an evil demon, but you are cursed with a drill, an infinitely spiraling drill that pierces the heavens and dares strike the face of God.
No. Penetrates the heavens. Penetrates the heavens.
It penetrates the heavens. It stands erect, defiant, and unholy. And it is not just a drill. It is a drill penis.
A chaotic
and
demon.
So, a chaotic.
It's a chaos demon, not an evil demon.
This is not an evil demon, but a chaos demon.
An imp. A metal imp.
I separate you from the flesh and bring you back into the realm of chaos. What do you have? What are your final words, Tetsuo, before I banish you? Once I banish you to the realm of your fellow gods of Fanboy and Shum Shum, Green Shirt Shaggy, and Rick Riordan, author of the
Where are we going?
Series.
Why is Rick Riordan here?
Avasti!
I love this show, dude. This is easily the best thing to happen to me in 2020 is this show.
Yeah. All right. Wait, before we sign off, I feel like we need to establish the Matthew McFadden's canon.
The Matthew McFadden canon will be established in our Lost Levels podcast. It's fine.
Okay.
It's fine.
We can establish that in the commentary. Just know that this entire podcast is now a Matthew McFadden stan podcast.
This podcast is dedicated to Matthew McFadden.
That's what we'll call this episode.
No, nothing about this episode.
Should we
Whatever.
come up with the title now, or should we just do it later?
I always come up with the title later. It's fine. Fear.
All right.
Fear. Fear.
All right. Goodbye, everyone. Fear.
Fear.
Fear.